Now, 2 years ago, CPAC, this is the Conservative Political Action Conference. This is the largest gathering of political conservatives annually in the country. Now, I don't think it's the most important conservative gathering. I think the Values Voter Summit in the fall is going to be in October this year, just a couple of months from now, that FRC hosts. We kind of co-sponsor it with the Family Research Council. That's the big fall event. CPAC is the big spring events that held usually in early February. Now, 2 years ago, what CPAC did is they invited GOProud to become an official sponsor of the event. Well, they were able to put their name on the letterhead. They had a booth there and everything. Last year, they anteed up enough moolah to become an official sponsor of CPAC. Now, because CPAC was making a place at the table for GOProud, AFA stayed home 2 years ago. Liberty Council stayed home. A number of other groups, and a lot of groups stayed home last year. Family Research Council stayed home. We stayed home again. The Heritage Foundation stayed home again. Liberty Council stayed home again. Concerned Women for America stayed home. Focus on the Family was about the only pro-family organization that actually showed up at the event. Now, the reason this was a concern to the pro-family movement is GOProud is an organization that exists to push the homosexual agenda. That's what they're all about, is promoting the legitimizing, the normalizing, the endorsing by society of homosexual behavior. And we said, look, homosexuality is not a conservative value. That is as blunt and as direct and straightforward as I can be. Homosexuality is not a conservative value. And I'll illustrate that here in just a moment. So this got the attention of the CPAC folks. The prior chairman, a guy by the name of David Keene, he really had no problem with having homosexual activists. Now, GOProud, it's GOP for Grand Old Party, so they're identifying themselves as Republicans. GOProud as in proud and out, proud of being gay. Their agenda is to put open homosexuals in the military and to promote gay marriage. So they are as relentless and as far left as you can get on the issues of human sexuality. And we said, look, if CPAC is going to treat that as a conservative view, conservative position, we're not going to be a part of this thing. And so enough groups stayed home last year, and they changed leadership. David Keene is out. The new chairman of CPAC is a guy by the name of Al Cardenas. And his tone and his view is completely different. He was deeply concerned that groups like the Heritage Foundation, Family Research Council, AFA were staying home from CPAC. This is not good, he said, for the conservative movement. And so they reevaluated things, and they disinvited GOProud this year. They're not coming back as a sponsor. They're welcome to attend as individuals, but they're not even going to have a booth at CPAC. Now, I think what this is going to mean is it's going to bring back a lot of these groups. I mean, AFA certainly will consider going back. I think Family Research Council will consider going back. I think Heritage Foundation almost certainly will be there. So a lot of these pro-family groups that have been stalwarts, torchbearers in the conservative movement, the pro-family movement for decades, are going to wind up coming back into the fold. And so therefore, I think CPAC did the right thing. And I think they did the right thing for the reason that I mentioned just moments ago. The reason, the fundamental reason that CPAC did the right thing here is that homosexuality is not a conservative value. And this is the Conservative Political Action Conference. It's not the Libertarian Political Action Conference. It is the Conservative Political Action Conference. Now, they had some problems. GOProud ran into some problems last year when one of its leaders referred to a member of the board of CPAC as a nasty bigot. That was his term. He called her a nasty bigot. And the reason he called her that is she believes in natural marriage. She believes that marriage is a union of one man and one woman. He called her a nasty bigot. Not smart to insult a member of the board of the organization that's hosting the event. I mean, it's just dumb for openers as well as being wrong. She's not a bigot of any kind for believing in natural marriage. So this guy was out there displaying his own bigotry, his own hatred, his own intolerance, while at the same time claiming to be a paragon of virtue and tolerance. So I think this was a good move just for pragmatic reasons, but primarily for moral reasons. Now, one of the reasons, and I think this is where our argument's infallible, we are unstoppable when we talk about the health risks of homosexual behavior. They have no comeback for this. They have no refutation for this. There's nothing they can do with it. So that's why I think this is one of the most important bases for us to argue the issue of homosexuality is the danger that homosexual conduct poses to human health. I mentioned I gave blood here several weeks ago. I had a blood drive here at AFA, and I was asked 3 times, 2 times in written form and once directly by the person who was going to draw blood, have you as a male ever had sex with another male one single time since 1977? If I'd answered yes, I would not have been able to give blood. I mean, the risk to the nation's blood supply is so severe that the risk that active homosexuals pose to the nation's health, to the nation's blood supply, so severe that if a man has had sex even one single solitary time since 1977 with another man, cannot donate blood. Now that right there, ladies and gentlemen, that tells you all you need to know. And I can verify that that's still the standard because I just went through this process 3 weeks ago and I was asked 3 times about that because this is a strict rule of the FDA because they just cannot afford to play Russian roulette with the nation's blood supply, play Russian roulette with the nation's health. Now notice, this doesn't have anything to do with bigotry. It doesn't have anything to do with hatred. This is purely a matter of science, biology, and human health. And that's what I'm not saying we ignore the moral issues or the biblical standards at all. We advance those at the same time. Scriptures are very clear about this. But here is an infallible, here is a irrefutable, that's a better word. Here is an irrefutable basis on which to stand when we say this is not behavior that ought to be legitimized, normalized, legalized, sanctioned, endorsed, promoted, funded by any rational or sane society. Now, we had some additional confirmation, and by the way, I've got a column that should either is up now or will be going up very soon at rightlyconcerned.com, going over some of this thing, going into some of these facts. There's a Reuters story this morning that I came across, and what prompted me to write this column. And the opening sentence in this Reuters column says this: between 2006 and 2009, quote, infections, this is HIV/AIDS infections, HIV infections, infections rose nearly 50% among young black and bisexual men. And then they got a quote from Dr. Kevin Fenton, who's the director of the CDC's National Center for HIV/AIDS. We're very concerned about these increases among young gay men. We can't allow the health to a new generation to be lost to what is essentially a completely preventable disease. And he is right. It is a completely preventable disease, and here's how you do it. Men, stop having sex with other men. Now, if you care about minorities, then it's especially urgent that we stop legitimizing this lifestyle because blacks represent just 14% of the population, but they have accounted for 44% of all new infections in 2009. So if you have any compassion for the African-American community at all, then you want this alarm to be sounded throughout the black community that this kind of behavior is a death sentence. It's not a lifestyle, it is a death style. And then Reuters has this stat. This kind of surprised me. It's buried down in the article. But Reuters even admits that homosexuals comprise 2% of the American population, not 10%. That's the myth that's out there, totally bogus, totally fabricated. The reality is homosexuals comprise 2% of the U.S. population. Even Reuters admits it today. Reuters is not a part of the vast right-wing conspiracy. So they indicate that homosexuals comprise 2% of the United States population, but they accounted for 61% of all new HIV infections in 2009. 2% of the population, 61% of all HIV infections. So I say it's time for our public policy to be guided by science, biology, and human health concerns and time-honored standards of sexual morality. Homosexuality, not a conservative value.